guys, welcome back to my channel. It's BooksWithBethx here, and today, as you can see from the title, we will be discussing my most anticipated books that are being released in the first half of this year. I say first half, it's sort of more second quarter really, but yeah, all the books that I'm looking forward to reading that are being released between now and the 1st of June. So let's begin. So for a bit of context, one of my reading goals this year is to try and read more books that are released this year. I'd like to read 5 in total. Last year I read 1, and I did buy 2 that were released last year. The other one was Lost Metal, but I've only just got around to reading that, so it doesn't really count because I did not read it in the year it was released at all. And the other one was Babel, which R.F. Kuang has got my heart, and obviously she is going to be mentioned again in this video. So yeah, let's begin. So, of course, my most anticipated book, and I've already mentioned her name in this video, is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. So this has been released on the 16th of May, so we've only got a couple months now to go. And it is a mystery thriller about the publishing world. So in typical R.F. Kuang fashion, it is about discussing race and things like that. It's also been released in the wake of some union strikes at HarperCollins as well, which is quite interesting to look at. I believe they've just called off the strike, so they might have been given a good pay offer, which anyone in the UK knows there's a lot of strikes going on at the minute because of a lot of government companies not paying their staff the amount they should. Nurses being the main one, ambulance service, you know. Yeah, if you're in the post as well, if you're in the UK, you'll know about all of these. But yeah, this book is kind of in the wake of that. So the book discusses, there's 2 characters that are sort of author rivals. One's a white female and the other one's an Asian American, I believe, female. And the Asian American dies from suspicious circumstances. She's more of a popular author. She's actually had work to publish, whereas the white woman hasn't. And the white woman realises this and then goes in, realises that her friend's been killed or has died, goes in and steals her manuscript for her next book, which is around a book about Chinese labourers in World War I. So obviously it's not something a white person would really write about in that instance. And she steals the story from her rival / friend and publishes it under a pseudonym, which makes people think that she's actually Asian herself and she's not. And it's sort of discussing, of course, as I say, in typical R.F. Kuang fashion, race relations and things like that. So it sounds really interesting. As I say, I'll read anything by R.F. Kuang. I don't really read mystery thrillers that much, but I will read anything she publishes at this point. So that is my most anticipated book that's coming out this year. So the next book I'm looking forward to reading is Old Babes in the Wood, which is a short story collection by Margaret Atwood, who's the author of A Handmaid's Tale, and Old Testament, I believe the sequel's called. This is coming out on the 7th of March, so only a few days away now, and it's a short stories collection. It's quite a varied collection. From what I've seen, there's books that are more contemporary, where it's following the relationship between a couple over the years, so there'll be a few different short stories throughout the collection of those. There's also a few that are more sci-fi, fantasy and folklore-y, so that's right up my alley. So I'll definitely give that a read, and as it's a short story collection, it should be quite a small read, or quite a short read, I should say. So it should hopefully help me get through my reading goals a bit quicker. Another book that's coming out in the early part of this year is Happy Place by Emily Henry. So this is being released on the 24th of April. And this is a romance, and I've not read any Emily Henry books yet. However, I am planning on reading all her books this year, especially if I go on holiday. I can just see myself literally reading beach read on the beach, you know, like it's almost written, it is written for the situation of you sitting on the beach reading. Really easy to understand, but good romances that don't have any red flags and no incest and no weirdness that a lot of short stories have, and no domestic abuse like a certain very famous author who I will never read. I will add that. If you don't read Coho and you don't want to read Coho, follow me, because I'm also not reading Coho and I will not ever read her books. So yeah, we've got that. I won't discuss that. But it does fit one of my favourite romance tropes, which is fake relationship. I've not looked too much into it, But I do love fake relationship. We've got like All the Boys I Loved Before, which is one of my favourite sort of tropes, well, favourite books that fits into that trope. It's where you've got two people pretending to be in a relationship, but then they end up falling in love. It's quite cute. And I've read quite a few different books over the years when I was growing up. I mean, you've even got Hunger Games, that's technically fake relationship in the first book. So yeah, looking forward to that. The next book is actually a debut novel called Chain Gang All Stars, which is by the author Nana Kwame Adeji Brenya. I can't read my own handwriting. That's coming out on the 5th of May this year. And this one sounds really interesting to me. I quite like dystopian, sort of Hunger Gamesy style, battling for freedom type books. They're very dark books usually. So this one follows two women who are in prison. In this world, if you're in prison, there's sort of this gladiator style competition you can join where you fight to the death. And if you win the fight, you win freedom. It's a televised sort of event that everyone watches, and it sounds quite dark. It's sort of a dystopian version of America. So I saw it described as being Hunger Games meets Gladiators meets WWE. So that sounds right up my street. So I'm looking forward to that, and it's a debut author. So it'll be interesting to find a new author and add them to my list and read all their future books if I really enjoy this. So the next book I've got on my list is Pinata by Leopold Gate. Again, can't read my handwriting. And this is coming out on the 14th of March, so again, not too long away now. This one is rooted in Aztec history. So I'm a history buff. I adore my history, and I quite enjoy like my mythological history and looking into how people saw gods and things like that years ago. So this story follows a powerful spirit who is looking to avenge the victims of colonialism by possessing a teenager and her parents who are now living in America, modern day America, and giving the young daughter or the teenage girl powers to obviously take back and fight against those that removed her from her home area. So this sounds really interesting. I'm quite into my fantasy. This sounds more magical realism, but again, I like fantasy and I like history. So the combination of those two is definitely right up my street. So I'm looking forward to that coming out in a few days' time. So the next book is actually a non-fiction, and this is Pathogenesis, A History of the World in 8 Plagues by Jonathan Kennedy. This is being released on the 18th of April. And this is basically history of plagues, which I probably shouldn't be that interested in plagues considering we've now lived through one in just my generation alone. But yeah, it's a history of plagues over the last 60,000 years, so how they've impacted different communities and how people have got over them. And this just sounds quite interesting. It's interesting to see how people have reacted to them and recovered from them over time. And obviously The Last of Us is out on TV at the minute, so again, it'd be quite interesting to compare it in the wake of that as well. And the final book on my list is Witch King by Martha Wells. So I've not read any Martha Wells yet, but I know that the Murderbot series is beloved by a lot of people and it's on my list to read as soon as possible. Witch King comes out on the 30th of May, so a couple months away. It's the last one on my list, I believe, for release date. Yeah. But this one is her first fantasy, which will be very interesting to read. And I couldn't really understand too much about the sort of what's going to happen in the story, so I've made a note that it's a fantasy following a boy waking up after being assassinated to someone trying to steal his powers. I believe it's a monk trying to steal his powers. And it sort of follows him trying to work out what has happened, how he's ended up in this position, how he's been killed, but then somehow come back to life again. It just sounds quite interesting and a bit different. Sounds like quite a dark fantasy, so it sounds like it should be something I should enjoy. But yeah, those are my most anticipated books that are being released the first half of this year. Are there any others I should look out for? Because I actually really struggled to find this many, especially fantasy. I don't know if fantasy is something that's more released towards the end of the year. Perhaps it is. But yeah, I'm very interested in reading all of those. If there's any others I should add to my list, please let me know because I will definitely want to read them. Yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Follow my TikTok because there'll be a short version of this. There's also other videos. I've got quite in-depth reviews on there now as well, which are more than what I'd be going into on here, especially when I've just finished a book. But yeah, follow me there and I will see you later.